Hiroshima, Nagasaki, cities that were turned to rubble, irradiated rubble, famously destroyed like the only atomic bombs ever deployed in war. Well, guess I'll go book a flight there. So how does an atomic bomb work? The science behind these things didn't even exist at the turn of the century, so how did we figure them out? Well, the discovery of the proton and neutron helped us get our current model of the atom, which meant that we could predict what happened if we smashed them together really hard. We can thank people like Otto Hahn, Louis Meitner, and other scientists working with them for discovering the process of nuclear fission, which is basically when you smash two atoms together, they shatter into a million pieces, and break more atoms in a chain reaction. Enrico Fermi would try it out in 1941 underneath the University of Chicago's football field, proving that this theory was feasible. Using this process, one can make a device that shoots neutrons at a uranium nucleus and start an uncontrolled chain reaction, which could release enough energy to create a bomb. So, that's exactly what happened during World War II. Nazi Germany dismissed the idea because of their unwavering anti-Semitism, but the United States started building these bombs due to a letter from Leo Szilard. This letter, which was signed by Einstein, pleaded the US to build nuclear bombs before the Germans did, although Einstein was a pacifist. So, the US got some uranium, tested a bomb in the middle of New Mexico, got some plutonium, and built two more ready to be shipped to Japan. One time I got something shipped from Japan and it took almost a month, but somehow we get to build the first nuke ever and then send one to Japan in less time? How? Anyways, I'm getting off track. How did these cruel bombs affect the lives of hundreds of thousands of civilians in the two cities? As you can guess, many important buildings like hospitals, apartments, and military buildings were completely obliterated when the bombs dropped, because there was no warning. Many people were trapped inside the now irradiated city. Lots died near instantly from the fireball near the center of the explosion, but if you were one of those people, you may have been one of the lucky ones. More people that were farther away from the bomb got intense exposure to radiation, whose effects could range from near instant cell death to long-lasting medical consequences, like an increased rate of cancer. The people who did survive the nukes were undoubtedly traumatized for the rest of their lives. Although most children were regularly evacuated into rural areas due to the near constant bombing of Japan, the other people still in Hiroshima probably had little chance to escape the bombs. Some have survived, probably after having to navigate through a chaotic crowd of people running away from their imminent doom, likely being badly injured from radiation exposure or crumbling buildings, and they'd have to find a hospital that isn't overcrowded past all possible limits. So, once you think about what life must have been like immediately after the bombings, it's no wonder why they're traumatized. Following these horrific events, many people decided that, hey, maybe these bombs aren't that good to be dropping on other countries. Because from photos, firebombings and nukes look the same at the end, but the main danger is what's invisible. Radiation can travel further than fire, and damage even more. Even before Hiroshima, at the time around the Trinity tests, scientists were concerned about how these bombs could be used for evil, and I can see that. After all, they wanted to work for energy, not for destruction. Despite these anti-nuclear sentiments, the US kept just building more bombs, and then the Soviet Union started building bombs too, and then we got hydrogen bombs which were more destructive, and then France and Britain got some nukes of their own too. But the anti-nuclear movement would eventually lead to less hot-headed nuke droppings, as none were ever used in war again, and eventually nuclear testing would be outlawed too. So they did achieve some success, although we just have a bunch of nukes flying around. Related to this, many people still debate, no one really debates anymore. They argue about if we should use nuclear bombs or not. Like, one could argue that triggering nuclear bombs will for sure lead to the end of the world, but others keep them so that way the end of the world for sure won't happen. It's like one side saying that nukes are scary so we should destroy them, and the other side is saying nukes are scary so we should scare people with them. But you know what I think? We should just make some of them into nuclear power plants. Think about it. We already have enough to destroy the world, and we already have to spend a lot of time and money maintaining them. So why not just take all of that time and give its benefits to normal everyday people? Like, the Palo Verde nuclear power plant gives electricity to almost 9 million people here in the Southwest, and the main 3 nuclear disasters everyone seems to know, Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and Fukushima, were all caused by freak accidents or mismanagement of the plants. Nuclear plants also kill less people than just getting coal out of the ground. So if you need to reduce our dependence on other countries' energy, instead of blasting the ground for dinosaur juice, use something that won't mess up our air. Okay, rant's over now. So post-World War II, the US was excited to have a nuclear monopoly, as they could destroy anyone they wished with no consequences. But, as it turns out, there were some spies working for the Soviet Union that relayed some super top secrets to their scientists, so they could build a nuke stockpile of their own. Because of this, North Korea thought it would just be safe to invade South Korea in 1950, since the Soviets could just counter American nukes. But even without nukes, they just got pushed up to the Chinese border. Famous World War II General Douglas MacArthur suggested that they should deploy tactical nukes on the Chinese border, but he got fired for this. After all, if the US sends a nuke, the Soviets could now just send one back to them. Therefore, the thought of mutually assured destruction started to develop. If one country deploys a nuke and the other counters, they could just go on and on sending nukes at each other, and this would definitely lead to the Earth being covered in nuclear fallout and radiation. So, no more nukes were dropped in war, although tests continued well into the 60s. Many survivors of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings are definitively anti-proliferation and dislike nuclear weapons. After all, they went through the bombings themselves and saw all of the casualties and destruction it caused. Naomi Sakamoto stated this in his testimony about the atomic bombings. More than 50 years have passed since the end of the war, and my memories have become vague. But when I think about the friends of mine who died so young, I feel obliged to pass this experience down to my descendants, taking every opportunity to tell them how dreadful war is, what disastrous results nuclear weapons bring, and how important peace is. Testimonies like these show the world that these bombs are not something to just play around with, and they cause immense destruction. It's likely they gave more credibility to the anti-nuclear movements that led to the end of atomic testing and a decrease of nuclear proliferation throughout the years. Yet, some people still believe that bombs can be justified in some cases, although I don't believe it. And that concludes my video on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell!